All right, in the last recording, we did manage to get the data out of the model, wrote some SQL, got it out of the database, passed it back to the controller then passed it to the view, and we displayed it. So we know the information's coming in. And in a way, now that I look at this, we can see all this data, but if this is my selected employee, do I really need to know whether they're union members? Do I really need to know their salary, their hire date? All I want is enough information so that the user can say, that's the camper or that's the employee whose data I want to see. So I've got way too much data here. So the first thing I'm going to do is go back to the model. And instead of give me all the fields from TBL employees, I'm going to narrow that down. And I want the employee ID. And then I'm going to concatenate, and so that would be my SQL. So it's the concat function of last name and a space and a first name parentheses. And I can even give that a name as EMP name. That's just a review from RDD, right? You can't plus things, you got to concatenate them. And again, this is a query that I could cut and paste from here, throw it into the workbench, make sure it works, build it in the workbench, and when it's done, paste it in here. This still does not have a where clause. It also doesn't have an order by clause. And if I remember right, am I in the right language? I can break my string in half in between the quotes in PHP. It's one of the few languages. And did Swift let us do that? I don't think so. Split a string across, a string literal across lines. Don't remember. They're very uncomfortable, but here's my order by clause. And remember, my order by clause can use a calculated field, so that's cool. And if we want a where clause, I can stick it in between there and add variables and do whatever I want to do. But we're not ready for that yet. So now I've changed my query so that all I get is the ID, last name, first name, ordered by name now. I'm going to do a quick save and make sure that gives me what I expect. Agent, Amiga, Barnoff. I don't remember if they were in a weird order before. They might have been alphabetical to start with. I don't know. But the point is, you can order by multiple fields, calculated fields. Here's my EMP name. Everything's cool. That's the minimum data. Remember the lookup grid in C#? Put the minimum data in there so somebody can pick a DVD to look at the details. Minimum data. So that is the appropriate data for my lookup, my list, my employee list. Now I want to make that pretty. So I'm going back to the list, view. I've got the data, it's just ugly. So now I've got my GUI hat on. I turn this over to Brandon and say, here, make this pretty. Because he does it really fast. Okay. Or give it to the Bootstrap people and say, here, I gave you some data and I'll go make it pretty. So let's make it a little prettier here. Could create a table, but I don't really need tables here. So I think I'm just going to use paragraphs. Could use an unordered list and put each one of the employees into a separate list item. That's fine. Do what you need to. I'm putting each one in a separate paragraph. For each one of these paragraphs, I want to display. So now I'm into PHP. I want to echo the employee name for the current record. Wait a minute. I need a loop. I want to do this for every single employee. So above my paragraph, I'm going to do my minimal PHP tags here. You may or may not like this, and you can tweak it however you see fit. And I can't even type PHP. All right. I'm going to use my minimal here for each. And now I'm going to my notes here real quick. Hang on just a second. We did all this prepare stuff. I've been moving quite ahead here. Also remember real quick, notice that there is inside here, there is no zero element. In the past, there would have been a zero element whose value is 441612437. Then there would be an employee ID element. And then there would be a one element whose value is Amiga, Arnold. And for every associative element, key value pair, there was an indexed pair. Just to give you the flexibility to access it however you want. Never used it, so that's what that little flag that we added to our PDO statement is, to say, skip the zero parts here. We don't need it. All right, back to the notes. Somewhere in here it's going to help me. There's a parameter. Ooh, really? Going to do parameters already? Where did I say use a for each loop? There's a while. Nah, that's not what I want. Okay, sorry. I'm jumping around here more than I wanted to. Retrieving data, that's where I want. Okay, I got my results. Tip, there it is. For each, parentheses, employee as an emp. For each, parentheses. Been doing too much Swift, leaving parentheses out of stuff now. EMPS, that's my employees array that we've already verified, comes out right. As an EMP, you've seen this how many times in Swift, right? I have an array, I'm using one element, it's the singular version of the plural name of the array. Colon. In this case, because all we really got is p tags, it's hardly worth putting minimal PHP here. I could have easily just echoed my p's, right? You want to switch it?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter, let's leave it so we get some experience with these split for each loops. And then down here we need another tag that is the end for each, and yes, that's the actual keyword.
If it was a table, would you definitely split it?
Yeah, if this was more complicated here with tables and TDs and TRs and stuff, yeah. But right now, all it is paragraphs. So I'm not gaining a whole lot with my split for each and end for each and all that kind of stuff. So now again, in here, I want to display, let's just be creative. I want to echo a parentheses. Let's use double quotes. Parentheses, oh, I'm sorry, no, can't use double quotes. You cannot grab array elements inside of quoted strings because the square brackets get everything confused. So we have to concatenate. And now we're echoing so we can use John's technique. I want parentheses followed by the EMP square bracket, one employee square bracket EMP ID. This is what John has researched and said is most efficient, right? John separated with commas as long as you're in an echo state. It's better than concatenating. It's faster.
Because echo is a function.
Because echo is a function.
What you're really doing is the same as saying echo and then that first string and then echo.
Right.
So it's actually doing two separate echoes, which is quicker than trying to figure out how to concatenate something and building it on the fly.
Right. So then I'm going to echo at the end of that another parenthesis and then echo the EMP name. How you display these is up to you. This is temporary still. But what I hope to get now is my employees with their ID numbers in front with parentheses around them down the page instead of my semi-pretty print array command. It's amazing how old some of this stuff would be, because I shouldn't be doing B's, right? That should be strong tags, whatever. So this is a little tricky, but really what I'm displaying is 1, 2, 3, 4 things. A parenthesis, the ID number of the current employee, because this is the current employee, right? Walking through my array. That's the current employee. Give me the ID number for that current employee. Follow that by a parenthesis and a space, and follow that by the name of the current employee. Remember that EMP name is a calculated field in my query. And I don't have to sort them because the query generated them, gave me an array already sorted. So I don't have to write any PHP, heaven forbid, to sort this stuff. Another good reason for Skyward to quit asking how to sort stuff, because it all gets sorted by SQL anyways. Yes, sir.
On the top, is that supposed to be a colon?
When you split these multi-line commands, that's basically a block. You can replace that with a curly bracket. If you do, then I think you need a curly bracket down here to end it, but I'm not positive. I use colons because it saves me. Let's see, there's a colon, and you don't need anything down there. Okay. I think I saved it because I don't see any dots out here. Let's just do another save to be safe. Come back over here and refresh the page. Let's do it the Mac way. Bingo. Now you can have some fun today in systems class. You start sucking in data because the SQL's out there, right? It's not 100% correct, but that's also what I'd like you to do is if you find errors in the SQL, let me know.
I haven't even created that yet.
But it's all out there. I've combined them. It's all there. All you have to do is import it and sit back and watch.
It works.
It works.
We had to, I just did that, I had to adjust our table because
Right, but there may be some field names that are flaky or something. If you find things that are flaky in the SQL, tell me, and I'll put a new one up there, and I usually just stick a date on it so you know which one's the current one. Now, what I really want here, this is my list, is, I'm sorry, questions? Magic, right? Kinda, because Sheila during the break is a little confused, where's my error, because where could the error be, right? It could be in the controller, in the case file. It could be in the model. It could be in the view. If you have kind of a plan to this, I always build my case file, and then I build the model files that I need to support it. And then I work the views until the views are beautiful, and then I can move on to the next one. Right, but this is something we've been talking about Agile. Oh, but before I forget, a week from today, at 11 o'clock, Sean's going to come talk about his Agile methodology that they use at East Bay. And you all don't have much introduction to Agile, a little bit here and there. I think I invited him to talk to my systems class, and I'm opening it up to everybody. So if you want to hear what Agile's like at East Bay, he'll be here for a couple hours to talk about it.
What is Agile?
What is what?
What is Agile?
What is Agile?
Yeah.
It's the systems development life cycle of the future, of the present.
Said next week, Wednesday at 11.
Yes. I will send an email. I haven't gotten to that part yet. I'm still waiting for him to confirm. He agreed in principle last night to do it, as long as I fed him. So he agreed in principle, but he needs to get back to me to make sure. Beer, well, that's for teaching that class. I still owe him a beer every week. Okay, so anyways, now I want to pretty this up a little bit more, and I want to be able to navigate from here to the details view. So how would I navigate? Well, we could put button all the way down for every one of these, add a little mini form with a button in it. But what I prefer to do in my lists is use links instead. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is take this text that I've generated and turn it into a link. And I'm going to set this as the parameter of my link. So when I click on the name Tammy Agent, it will send an action to the controller saying he wants the details, and included in that action will be the ID number of the person who I want. So I don't show these ID numbers on the form. Nobody likes to see that junk. Imagine if it was an auto number field. We don't want to see those. But we need them to go find the detail record that's associated with Tammy Agent. So back to the view. All we're doing is changing the view. Instead of echoing it like this, I'm now going to create a tag, ahref equals, and for right now I'm going to put quotation marks. And before I forget, underneath here, I'm going to put the end A tag. Oh, this is another thing that makes me crazy. I need an end of this angle bracket, right? Because all of this junk becomes part of my tag. Sort of. Here's the end bracket, and this gets the indentation here is a little dicey sometimes. And notice now it gave me the end A. Thank you. In between there, what I actually want to see on the form is the employee name. So inside here, I make a PHP tag. And I'm just going to echo the EMP name. Okay, now my syntax highlighting is all screwed up. But I'm sorry, let me back up a second. If I were doing an ahref, what would I normally do? If I was just typing a link here, I would say ahref equals go back to my server. I could put a dot there, right? I don't think I even need it. And let's use the action. What action do I want? I want employee details. I hope that's the action, so I better go look. Here's my cases file. I'll be right. Let's put it down here. There's my cases file. Employee details. That's the right one. Right, back to the view. That's not where I'm at. List. There we go. I want action employee details, and I want to send it the ID number. And so that gets done with an ampersand, if I remember right. And let's just put EMP ID here as a placeholder. And you can follow along because I'm just going to start taking stuff out and putting PHP tags in where I want things to change. Then, in between here, I want the EMP name end tag. That's what it would look like. And this is what I often do, write the HTML and then start taking out the stuff and putting in a little mini PHP tags instead. So I don't want any of these parentheses. There's my echo, the employee ID. There's the emp name. And those are two, I'm going to make them two separate PHP tags.
I feel like this would be simpler
If I weren't splitting.
doing
If I weren't doing minimal PHP, right? It won't be, because the fact that we're sticking these things inside complicates it, even if you make it a string that's all done with an echo command. The only thing that gets complicated here is the multiple PHP tags. And you're not saving a whole lot. If you do it the other way and you're happier with it that way, I'm not going to complain too loud. I'm not 100% convinced that minimal PHP is always the way to go. But again, I want to demonstrate it to you because you may see it. But yes, this could easily be done with one PHP tag that starts with a for loop, echoes a paragraph tag, echoes an ahref, and I'd have to echo this with quotes around it, and then I got quotes inside it, and then it gets a little dicey too.
But you lose your highlighting.
And then you lose some of your syntax highlighting. So this is a technique of mine where the user that is up to you. I put the HTML in there and say, okay, that's what the tag would look like. And I could actually run this and see 50 copies of that right now. But what I want to do is take out this EMP ID and replace it with this PHP tag.
You want to keep that ampersand?
Yes, I did. I saw it, ampersand, and I thought variable name. That's not what it was for. So yes, I will put that back. So that was here, ampersand. And then I want to take this entire PHP tag and cut it. And park it right there. That wasn't very good. Let's try again. There. That can't be right.
You missed your front Karen, open whatever it's called.
other side.
There we go.
So you have an extra one.
Okay, so there's that part. Now my big font, I'm getting a little out of control here, so I'm going to move this down to the next line. But notice this is the thing that always throws me for loops sometimes, these weird angle brackets. This is the end of the angle bracket for the PHP tag. This is the end angle bracket for the A tag. But again, if you build the HTML first in your PHP, you build the HTML first, then insert PHP where you need it, you're less likely to make mistakes, though you saw me doing it without the angle brackets. So now this EMP name goes away and gets replaced by this. What happened to it? Oh, I duplicated it, but forgot to duplicate the echo. Thank you. And that's also a very common mistake. Well, that's not the last time I'm going to make it. I'll PHP this variable. That's what I want. Give it to me. That doesn't work. Does not insert it into your HTML. And you get nothing. And you go, what? It's right there. And then maybe you'll see it and you'll put the echo in. More likely you'll call me over and I'll say echo and you go, oh, jeez, he told me. Ooh. Now again, throw a little bootstrap at this so we can indent them, maybe remove some of the extra spacing in between. You could also remove the extra spacing by using an unordered list with no bullets on them. But now I can also test my values here and touch these and say, where's it going? Down at the bottom, you can't hardly see it. It says it's going to done, question mark, action equals, employee details, ampersand, 3612341223. I have no idea if that's the right one, but I'm guessing it is. I could touch other ones and watch those numbers down there change. If I was really worried about it, I could have left the ID numbers on the form until I verified that the link is right and then remove them off the form. It's another strategy. But now I've got a way to get back. If I click on one of these, it's going to take me to the details view, but it's not going to show me the right record yet because I have not written the code to go get the right record. But it should take me to the details view, and it does. It's not the right guy, but that's next. So that's how I build lists. Now I'm not done yet because there's no searches in there, but I think we're going to leave the search for a little later. Let's get this thing linked to the detail view. And then we'll go back and say, oh, wait, I don't want to see all the employees. I just want to see certain ones. So whatever this list was, I think I just trashed it. I have no idea where I am in that list anymore. But we're on the right track, right? Don't let me forget to go back and show you how to filter that list, though. What's tricky about that is I often, when I come back from that list and go off and come back, I want the list to be still filtered the same way. Ooh. Ooh. So we'll save that one for next time. Keep you coming back. So I want this detail view now filled in. So the first thing I need to know, first thing I need to do is go back to the cases for employees. And here's my details. Now initially I'm showing no errors. And I don't know if there'll ever be errors, but that's left over from before. So I'm going to leave it there. It's just an empty string. And if there was anything there, we could display it on the form if there were any errors. Next thing I need to do is get the plant list. That function's already been written. However, it's not going to the database. All it's doing is generating a bogus list. So do we want to do that? Nah, let's leave the bogus list. We've got to add that to my list of things to do. Got to search. Got to make this plant list not be hard-coded. It's hard-coded right now. Just take a quick look. The employee or plants PHP just creates an array of plant names. How do we know those are hard-coded? Change that to a database access and we're fine because we're going to get the same kind of array. So we'll save that for later. This is what I need to modify. I want to call my get employee details, and that's also hard coded right now. But it needs to send in the ID. Which ID? The one that's in my link, right? So that should be where? How do I get to it?
Request away.
Very good. It's in the, is that spelled right? Is it underscore request? Okay. Square brackets, and we said EMPID. What if there isn't one? Why wouldn't there be? How do I get to this page without going through the list? You don't. So it'll be there. Whenever I ask for employee details, I must give it a name. The only exception to that is when it's a new employee, but that's a different case. I think that's up higher or something. I don't know. It's not even here yet. Right? If I do a new employee, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm not going to send anything, or I'll send an empty string in. And we'll say, oh, it's empty, so that means there isn't anything, and we bypass it. So now my case file should be ready, because when I'm done, here's the details, and you could rename that. That means nothing, just a variable name. This function is supposed to go get me all the details about this given employee and send them back. Then once I got them, then I can go into the employee details form and change things. I don't think I'm even going to have to change them. I think my details form is already showing details, right? Because it's showing what's in here. I'm just hard coding it right now. So, to the model. Are you with me? Model. Here's how I get employee details right now. I generate a fixed array and send it back. That's convenient, so I think I'll just comment it out instead of taking it out. It's just some test data so that I could test my form. Imagine this is, you've got a GUI guy out there testing your form, and you tell him, I'm going to have a bunch of stuff for you in an array called results or details or whatever we want to call them. So now in here, first thing I want to do, I want to make sure that I'm getting the right information. So I'm going to say echo my ID. But I have to be careful, because if I echo the ID, it's still going to include this view up here in my case. And it'll echo it, and then the view will come up and wipe it out. So temporarily, I can just comment that out so that the form doesn't pop up and get in my way. I just want to make sure that the ID has made it from the previous form to this form all the way down into the model. That's what I'm testing here. Save it. Go back here. Pick any one of these guys. And I get an undefined index emp ID. Really? Okay. On line 13, so no, that didn't work. So good thing I'm testing. What did I do wrong? Going to have to go back to my link here. Where do I make the link that's in the view?
You just was ID first.
Emp name, emp ID.
You named it ID.
Oh, here it's employee details. I didn't put the name of this on there. I'm in the list. Okay. This says action equals, but this number that I sent doesn't have a value, doesn't have a name to it. So it's missing a name, so I have to say emp ID, and that was a mistake in my HTML to start with. Emp ID equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's why you test in pieces. It'll save you grief. It'll narrow things down. I have saved that.
The new model file on line 9, shouldn't the variable name be emp ID?
No, because it's the ID, it's the variable
Oh, I
attached.
see.
It's the parameter.
This line's coming up.
Couldn't I just have dragged it out of the request array? I could. Okay. But this makes the function a little more flexible. So let me scroll this up so those of you who are looking can just grab. I can't scroll up. There we go. That's as far as it goes. Let's test it. I'm going back. I need to refresh this page because this page now has links that say emp ID equals 10101010. I'm sure Sheila can read that because it's about the same size as the font on her laptop. Okay, so now I've got a variable attached to that, and there's my ID. Now, whatever that undefined variable results thing is, I'll worry about that in a minute because we're not even that far. But I've proven now, or I've verified, that the ID number has come from the list to the controller, from the controller to the model. What do you need to see?
No.
Good. Okay. So now I've verified that. What do I do with it? I build a new SQL command.
Copy and paste.
Copy and paste. So I'm going to even copy my global DB all the way down to return results just to make myself comfortable here and put it up here. Indent properly and change the query. But that's not all. Now we have a parameter, right? Because I want to collect everything because I want to see the details from TBL employees, but I don't need an order by clause, I need a where clause. And so let's do it the bad way first, just to make sure it works, where the emp ID equals and concatenate my ID variable. Should that have quotes around it? Yeah, probably. That also gets annoying, having to put quotes around your stuff in SQL. So you've got, this is the quote for SQL. And that's the end quote for the SQL. Yeah.
I don't like that.
Hmm? You don't like that?
No,
But the good news is we're not going to stick with it because this is the bad way of doing it anyways.
no, I said it doesn't.
It doesn't like that? You got an open close here, and this is apostrophe quotes apostrophe here. Oh, when you run it, it doesn't like it?
You get nothing?
Get errors,
You get an error.
parse error, syntax, error.
Okay, first of all, I'm not quite done yet before we do that. This says fetch all the records. How many records are there going to be?
One.
One. So we don't fetch all, we just fetch. And then we get results and we send them back if everything works. He's telling me it's not, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But I'm guessing that this is going to work. I am wrong, but I'm guessing that this is going to work. So I'm going to the cases. And as soon as I'm done, I'm going to print array my details. That's going to tell me here's what you were sent from the model, just to see if it works. And if it works, then I can start displaying it. But I want to see it here without all the form nonsense stuff.
Where does details come from?
Details right here. My function sent back an array that was called results internal, but I saved it out here into something called details. If that confuses you, call it results everywhere. But to me, this is a detail of one employee. You could also go into here and change this one and say you're called details instead. That's up to you.
No, it makes sense now. It's just-
Okay. Save it. Back up a page. And we need to refresh this one. Did we change this page? No, I don't think we changed this page. So I'm going to pick this one, and down at the bottom, let me see if I can find one where I can. Okay, here's an 888. Diane Comstock. Number one, if I get the right data, my array should show Diane Comstock. Go. And I got it. Darn, Justin had me all nervous. All right, and there's my 888, and here's Diane Comstock, all her detail information. All ready to go. And so now, with any luck, I should be able to go in here and take this out. I'm back in the controller now. In the cases file, I'm taking that out and putting this back. Because this view was already created to display whatever's in the details array. Now I'm giving it something different. Magic. I don't think this button's quite right yet. Nope, gotta fix that button. But I can still hit the back button and go back to the list, pick somebody else, Timothy Frank, and just knock yourself out. Everybody's there.
Can you change their?
Hmm?
Can you change? Well,
Can I change it with this one? Yes. It's a great idea. No. That's why we use auto number fields, because changing primary key just causes all kinds of grief and validation and other things. So don't normally do it, but this database, that's how it's built. Okay. To finish up today, and again, when we come back, we might still have time to do plants here real quick, maybe. Okay. But we want to add a search feature. We want to be able to bring the plants in from the database instead of a hard-coded array. But before we do that, we've still got an insecure query. This query is subject to SQL injection because it doesn't use a parameter. It is hard coding something that the user could. This one's not dangerous, is it? Because the user doesn't get to type the ID number. How can the user send something in here? They don't get to. They're clicking on a link. Still a good idea to make it secure. Plus, time to learn how anyways. Pardon me?
Easier to read.
Yes, it'll make it easier to read. So back to my notes. How do we do the parameters? Using parameter queries. You must first define a query that includes parameters. Okay. So here's my query. Select star from TBL students, where the city equals, and notice the colon in front of that city. That's what designates this as a parameter. When this gets sent to the prepare, notice this has to be before the prepare statement. When this gets sent to the prepare statement says, oh, there's 1, 2, 3 parameters here. I better get 3 parameters before he tries to execute. That's part of what prepare does. So for every parameter that you have, you simply stick in something with a colon in the front. That's the name of the parameter. Notice it's cities all over the place, right? Here's a dollar city, here's a colon city, there's a city without all the above. Initially, that can be a little confusing. This is the name of the field in the table. This is the name of my parameter. Why would I rename it? I guess you could call it param city if it really confuses you, but the colon is your clue. And this is a variable called city that I defined up here. What this says is prepare my query with expecting one parameter called city. And then down here, there's a bind statement that says, take this variable, put it into that parameter. The part that always throws me is those quotes are required here in the bind statement.
How does that stop SQL injection? Because even if they put it in.
Because the parameter, the prepare statement will not allow anything in there that is not a value of the appropriate type. And if you put in something that includes select commands, it's the class that's doing that. So I don't know.
So that, no, that's how, because I was thinking whether we took that SQL command. And
Yeah, but we're
just let
stuffing it into this DB class, and the DB class has got the logic in it saying,
The difference is that it's let the whole thing you typed in is used as a value, where when they inject it, they actually put the quotes to end it and add more to your command.
One other thing to notice. Notice there's no quotes here, right? Even though this is a city, that's a string and a where clause. That should have quotes around. You don't put the quotes here. And that's part of what Reen's saying is if there's no quotes there and this is command thing, like then I put quotes around it, it basically says where this city equals quote select. Now, how many cities do we have with a select command in them? And that's what often happens in an SQL injection is you put in a select command inside a parameter, which makes it a subquery, but if it's got quotes around it, it's not a subquery. It's just a value. So there's some magic. Fact is, the PDO class makes it work. So let's modify our statement here. Instead of employee ID equals ID, we simply put in a parent or a colon, and I'll call it emp ID. So as Reen said, that makes my query a little easier to read because I don't have all the concatenation garbage in there. And if I've got 16 parameters, you just keep typing. You put colons in front of your parameters. But now I need the bind statement, and I have to bind after I prepare, because the prepare says expect these parameters. And then I have to bind before I execute, because without the parameters, I can't execute. So it goes in between here. And I'm going to go check my syntax. I think it's based on the statement, right? Yep, statement, bind value. So I'll type it so it's a little easier for you to follow along. It's part of the statement. We're inside that statement. We have a bind value. We have to provide it two pieces of information. First of all, in quotes, the name of the parameter. Then, which value do you want copied in there? In our case, the parameter. That guy. Whatever was sent in is what we use here, so that's our $ID. Done. Again, you don't put quotes around this. Remember my initial concatenation stuff, I had to deal with those quotes myself. You don't put quotes around these. If it's a date, you don't put quotes around them. If it's numbers, they wouldn't have quotes anyways. So whenever you put your parameters in, you put your parameters in. And the good news for us is when we write that SQL, we don't have to worry about putting quotes around strings and quotes around dates and stuff like that. Don't have to worry about it.
Do you have to do a bind value for
Each parameter.
You can't just continue going.
No, I don't think so. I've never tried it. If I have 3 parameters, I have 3 bind value statements. If I'm using emp ID in 2 different places, you can reuse it. Because if you use emp ID in your where clause and you're also using it in your order by clause or your having clause or your group by clause or whatever, then you can reuse the same one because it has names. But I've never run into that either. Usually my parameters are all different. Save it. We shouldn't see any difference, unfortunately. So I'm going back, and I didn't change my list page. I only changed the model. Did I save it? Looks like it. So I'll go with Hector here, and I still see Hector's information. But now I'm secure. I wasn't insecure really before. Well, yes, I was. I'm always insecure. But unsecure before. Or I wasn't. Because there's no way in this design, for somebody to inject into my label. However, they could go up here, right? And type in some ugly stuff. If we let them. In the future, we wouldn't let them. But that's one way. It just occurred to me. There's one way I can go up here and I can type my own $ and stuff at the end of that link. And duplicate one of these. I can see that in any browser. I can duplicate that and then take out the 482351236 or whatever it is and put in my own SQL injected stuff. So it probably is still a good idea. Because the user can type their own addresses up.
Justin, you were asking about the bind value. You can send it directly with the execute command as an array.
Oh, so we can execute with a bunch of parameters.
Yes, and then you don't use binds at all. You
Okay.
just send it an array of key value pairs.
So he's saying you put it in here, right? In the execute parent, in there you put in an array.
Yep. Execute parenthesis array parenthesis and then your line string. So single quote colon the name of it.
Then it's value, comma, another one, value,
Not
comma.
commas.
Oh.
What I'm seeing is space equals.
I like bind value.
I think I do too.
You're not gonna have
Makes
too
like
much.
an error.
Yeah, there's never that many, and the syntax of that sounds fraught with parentheses and curly brackets and square brackets, and don't mess them up. And
It's kind of ugly. I don't
yeah,
like that.
and there's 2, 3 is about it. The only place where bind values get long is when you're doing an update or an insert, because you bind every single field and say, put this in the employee ID, this in the first name, this in the last name, and every single one of those in the update command becomes a parameter for an insert and an update.
Really, it only saves you. Well, it doesn't save you anything.
And it's
Just to
pretty ugly.
To format it so you can actually read it, you're still splitting
Yep.
your array on separate lines anyway. You're just not typing line value over.
Okay, we're on a roll, so let's get these plants out of the way, and we'll start next time with searches. Plants. I need those plants when I display my employee details, because in my employee details, I have a combo box with plants inside. Here's my select statement. Notice it's got a PHP if statement. If it's a new record, then we add missing. Otherwise, we add existing plants. Okay. Here's the loop for each one of the plants in this array. So I expect a plants array. This view expects an array called plants, so I have to send it one. It walks through each one of the plants, and it tacks on an option to my select statement. You'll remember options, right, in your combo boxes, where the plant ID is its value and it displays the plant name. So these are just like the combo boxes we did in C#, where the text appears as plant Saugatuck, plant Coloma, but behind the scenes, we've got the ID numbers. And the value is what gets sent in the request array, so the plant number is what gets sent and what gets saved and all that kind of stuff. So this is already pre-built, and we'll talk more about how we're abusing some of these things in the future. But we should be able to go into the plants model and just quickly throw in some SQL here to do our job. So here's my results array. That's the temporary one. I think I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to make a quick switch to my employees cases so I can steal an SQL command. That one's got binding. I don't need binding. So I'm going to steal a better one. If you steal wisely, you don't have to modify quite as much. And then back to plants. Not sure what that is, left over from my sample, no doubt. Okay, so I want to select the plant ID and just the plant name. I don't have anything complicated here. Plant name from TBL plants. Order by plant name. Run it, done. It gives me the exact same array. Maybe not. I don't remember if the other ones were sorted alphabetically by name. They were sorted by ID. But this gives me the exact same array. The plant ID is used as the value. The plant name shows up in the combo box. Again, when we're done, probably not going to see any difference. I hope not. Still haven't changed my list. Uh-oh. Undefined index plant ID with a capital D.
Because in all your actual view, you have
So this one, in my views, they're all capped because they're left over from a couple of years ago. So in my query, I better capitalize it the same way. Doesn't matter how it's capitalized in the database, though it would be wise to make them all the same, but that's what you get for having existing code. And this is back to one of the complaints that many graduates have when they come back to talk to me and said, you know what, I haven't written any new code in a long time. I'm maintaining other people's code and looking at it and dealing with all the junk that they put in there, and you never taught us much of that. The more I look back at my examples, I think about all the starters in class and after class. I'm stuck with a capital ID here. Could I go through every one of my views and all that stuff and change them all to little d's? Yeah, I could. But if you're doing production versus, then that's all that stuff you got to test. Versus if I put it in here right, the other one, the view's still good. So let's see if that solves the problem. I do have to go back to, I don't know if I can just refresh this page. No, because I need to collect the data again.
If you refresh it, it should collect the data. I hit refresh.
Okay. So this one is Coloma. I'm just going to go pick a couple others and make sure that they're changing. Luck of the draw, 2 Colomas to start off. But it does seem to be changing. And if we look at the source code behind this, you'll see that that is probably ugly. It is. But here's my option value 1 for Coloma, option value 2 for Polonia, option value 3 for Richmond, 4 for Saugatuck. So that's how you fill a combo box. Basically the same way. This will give you a few examples that you can use in the next couple of hours if you think you're ready to do that kind of stuff. Most of you are still dinking around with looks and trying new ideas, and I love it. Keep going. Questions? All right, I will save mine so that you can look at it for those of you who didn't quite keep up with the last bit of that. The other thing I still want to do at some point is change my code so that when I click on this employee list button, it takes me back to the list. This is effectively my cancel button. Change my mind, never mind, give me back. Here, because I've only got a few forms, I can be explicit and say, this is my employee list. In Lions, you're all trying to share buttons. Well, then you're not going to be able to customize the labels on each button without a little bit of effort. Probably could do it, but I don't know that it's necessary.